Go on, John.
So I was looking around on iTunes trying to find our podcast because it hasn't been accessed yet for iTunes. And when iTunes can't find the thing that you're looking for, it will give you some options for things that it thinks you're looking for. And it's kind of interesting how many roleplay podcasts there are to do with sexualized activities. So unless Gareth and Dan have some shocking revelations to reveal for us tonight, I think anyone who's listening to this for those kinds of things is going to be a little bit disappointed.
If you're only watching the listening to this as a podcast, not a video, I'm just sat in a tub of jelly. That's it.
But if you're here to listen or watch for some RPGs and tabletop information and news and reviews and everything in between, welcome to Roleplay Life. This is the second episode. I'm your host for tonight. I am John, and virtually on top of me are my co-hosts.
We were only just talking about the fantasies. Come on now.
I thought it was us that was meant to have the revelations.
There's Dan, and there's Gareth. How are we all doing tonight?
Absolutely fantastic. Just for if it is my video used, it is the reverse for some reason. It is Dan here, so on that side, and then Gareth on the other. I don't know why, but I'm actually having a good day. I'm having a good weekend. I've been a little bit ill, but I'm okay now.
Good. Gareth?
I've had a very colourful day, as we were discussing before we recorded this.
Yes.
But I'm good.
Excellent. So, like I said before, we're going to be covering tabletop activities, whether they be games, card games, and such, and also a smattering of role-playing games on the computers and consoles and such. We've all decided to choose a topic each, and who wants to go first? Don't all jump in at once.
From the conversation that we were having, my topic kind of piggybacks onto the back of John's topic.
Okay. All right, we'll start with that then. So I was looking at Twitch the other day, and I noticed that there was a game I didn't recognize that was very, very anime-esque, which piqued my attention. A game called Genshin Impact. And I did a little bit of searching, found out it was released on the 20th of September, which is, 3 weeks ago maybe? And it's okay. Moving on.
What a powerful review.
Yes. No, I decided to try it out. It's free. It's a free-to-play, open world, like I said, anime type looks role-playing game with gacha mechanics. Now, if you're not sure what those are, it's basically loot crates 2.0.
It's so much worse than loot crates. I mean, come on. Oh, you pay for loot crates, or you can pay for loot crates. Gacha, you've got to sit there for 40 minutes at a time, and I only know this because I happen to have done my research on the Genshin Impact, to decide whether you want to roll a boy or a girl.
I just picked a boy. So I've played the game. I decided to try it out to get some information and see if I actually liked it, because I'm not big on these types of open world games. I don't play WoW. I played Guild Wars for a very short time and burnt out very quickly on that. And it's okay. Like there were a couple of things I would definitely change about this. So that by far and above, the worst thing about this game is you have a companion. Your companion is called Paimon, and it's a little girl who's about 2 foot who can fly. She's like a fairy, and I don't know what it's like.
Hey, listen.
No,
that's the only other fairy that I can think of.
No, you get one, Gareth. You get one of those, okay? Anyway,
that's it. We never invited him again after this.
So Paimon is this fairy, and she is annoying as all hell. Like, she... I mean...
Muggy-esque.
Yeah, pretty much. But she refers to herself in the third person, and I think that's the worst thing.
Oof,
now, if she were a fairy who was pretending to be Zlatan Ibrahimovic, that would be different. It would be hilarious if you had like a fairy version of Zlatan over your shoulder telling you what to do in the game. I'd be all on board for that. But unfortunately, Paimon sucks. Although I did catch a couple of actions where she referred to herself as me. So she can't even maintain character, which is even worse.
I mean,
go on.
With you saying about the gacha scenario,
yes.
That's not the only Genshin Impact controversy, though, is it?
Why? What else? What else have you heard?
The other one is, I remember seeing this, I want to say 18 months ago. It was a while. So I was kind of shocked when you were like, oh, have you heard of Genshin Impact? And I was like, yes, I have. I've not played it. But Nintendo had a very long discussion with them because the initial build of Genshin Impact was Breath of the Wild, reskinned.
So,
and it was not just a reskin, it was like, so it's the Breath of the Wild for free.
So
and you've just put different skins in it.
It definitely does have Breath of the Wild elements to it. Just for everyone's information, I haven't actually played Breath of the Wild. It's a shameful thing to admit to, but I haven't played it. I never got around to it. But yes, it is very much like that. The only things I would say are different are the cooking isn't quite as important, and you can climb for a lot longer. Although
well, those are the only differences. I'm worried. Like I can see a lawsuit on the horizon.
Well, I'm told that sometimes like the difficulty spike in Genshin Impact can be like, it's like, oh, this mission's pretty simple, and then like the next mission will be like, instead of, I don't know if it's a rating system or something, and it'll be like, say for example, mission 1's a 1-star mission. You're like, okay, that's nice and easy, and then mission 2's a 2-star mission. And you're like, what the hell's 5-star going to be 2-star? Nearly finished me off.
So
and it's definitely built on the grind, I believe.
Yes, I've played maybe 3 hours, and I've done the main story quests, and I got to level 8, I think, before the game told me that I needed to get to level 15 to continue the story. And it gave me some pointers towards how to raise my level. There was some side quests that I could do in my journal. But I did some of those things, and my level, I think, after I got to that point at 2 hours, and then an hour later, I was at level 10. So
the XP drop just dramatically fell off.
So, in terms of the actual like look of the game, it looks amazing. It looks pretty good. Like, wait, that's a complete change. It's very good, and for free, I wasn't expecting it to be quite so slick. It's been very well made so far. I've not noticed any sort of like Fallout or Skyrim people clipping through the world or anything to do with those kinds of bugs, which for an open world game, they're bound to happen, but I haven't noticed any yet. Okay, I've only played for 3 hours, but you know, you would expect to see something by now. I noticed something else. The menus were not great, let's say. So there are definitely it's a symbol-based radial menu. Because I played with a controller. You can play with keyboard or controller. I chose controller because it's easier. But they're just symbols.
Keyboard, mouse, or die.
Thank you, Dan.
You're very welcome. I just wanted to jump in and say that.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Go. Yeah.
You just
whoa, yeah, where that one was
going. A banner that says PC Master Race.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's in the wash. Actually, it'd be there otherwise. Sorry.
Why don't you not just get it projected so that you can get it on the back of your screen?
I can't even get my lighting sorted, so projector's never going to work in this room.
I can relate. I can relate.
Pre-podcast discussions there. Sorry, back to Genshin Impact.
No,
controller.
So yes, it had a radial menu. There were symbols, and then it goes to more symbols and everything. The thing that I found weird with that is I've seen many games do this, especially open world games. They're rife with that because it's easier when you go to different territories. You don't have to write out the different translations of each of the menu options. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The thing I do have a problem with it is that the main menus shows your character that you selected, your HP, and your birthday. Each of your characters has a birthday, and it and it shows that as one of the main things on the main menu. And I can't figure out
birthday.
Yeah, but why
do you get birthday gifts?
Yes, I'm assuming that you do. But why display that in like the main section? Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
I just have the image of someone cheating that.
So if you're playing keyboard, it's number keys, and you can select up to 4 characters who have different elements, and they interact really well. Actually, it's kind of like a Tales of game. If you guys are familiar with those, it's so combat is a little bit mashy. You've got one button that is your main attack, and 2 other abilities that are connected to your element, and your elements. There are 7 different ones, and they can interact differently. Kind of like how that Harry Potter game that people were talking about a month ago. What's that game called?
Spellbreak.
Spellbreak, yes. Kind of similar to that. So the different elements can interact with each other in different ways. So one character can be like a water type who can get all the characters wet, not in that way. And another character can be an ice character who can then freeze all of those characters. And you can change between them. So you're controlling one person at a time. And you change the buttons, or if you're playing controller, it's the D-pad. And you have cooldown on changing between characters. I think it's a second.
Wow.
Yeah. So you quickly, or quite quickly, changing between characters, making sure that you manipulate the buffs and debuffs to control mobs, because it's, even though you've got 4 characters, it's 1 character per time against your mob that you're attacking. I have no problem with that. I think that's quite nuanced. I think it's quite good. The thing I will say though, 3 hours in, I was enjoying everything apart from Paimon. Paimon can go die, quite frankly.
I hate to segue, but every time you say Paimon, I'm going to bring you both back now, and any of our listeners. Digimon.
Digital monsters.
It sounds to me like Paimon is the little, if you all remember, the youngest one's little Digimon that didn't do anything and then turned out to be an angel. That's what it sounds like to me.
With Digimon,
it's not back again, isn't it? I don't know.
I always love the evolution in Digimon. So, if you look at Pokemon, you can see little animal, middle-sized animal, really big animal, and it basically stays the same. Someone did a great thing of this recently. And it was like Pokemon evolution, and it's like a beer fridge, then it's a chiller, and then it's a fridge freezer, and then it's like Digimon. It's a chiller, it's a machine gun, it's a tank attached to a dinosaur.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, it honestly is a joke.
Funnily, actually, there was an RPG Digimon game that came out 6 months ago, or something like that. It was a detective game. Yeah,
right,
it was.
It's actually older than 6 months old. I think it's nearly 2 years old. Because I actually remember seeing it in game pre-apocalypse.
Everyone.
And it actually had quite a few reviews, quite a few good reviews. And it looked, when I was reading the back of the box, because I had a bit of Digimon nostalgia, and I was like, wow, this actually sounds kind of intriguing.
Well, from what I could grasp, it was actually pretty good. I'm just trying to find it.
Well, I mean, there's...
Oh, you're right, actually, yeah.
Just whilst we were talking about that, though.
Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth came out in 2017. I think what I may have confused it with is the fact that
it's currently in the PlayStation 4 sale for about £12.
I think what I confused it for is that it got released on PC not so long ago, and that's why I made that connection. It's meant to be quite good. Talking
about Digimon games, a complete aside, and this is exactly what we do. I don't know whether you've just seen when you've Googled it then, but Digimon Survive is an upcoming survival strategy RPG video game, but published by Bandai Namco. What a surprise.
Well, yeah.
And supposed to come out in Europe next year. So, we'll probably won't be talking about Digimon back then. It was just an aside because of Paimon.
Yes.
How Paimon sounds like Patamon. who is I have just googled the little orange fur ball with wings that
There's
goes
one of
into
the
Agumon or whatever.
Digimon arcs, and the main Digimon's called. You meet him and he's called Shoutmon.
I do remember that. Yeah, they got some really good names.
It was like Oscar, and he's like basically. I'll just finish my sentence. Oscar started watching it for a bit, and he found it quite interesting. But Shoutmon is basically he's like a microphone. And basically, like all of his stuff is like very rock and roll based. Like it makes me think very much of like the mid-90s Mega Man stuff. Because Mega Man in Japan is called Rockman, and his nemesis is called Bass. So it's rock and bass.
See, no one likes the bass player. It's just a factor. Well, that's us putting this as explicit now.
Yep. To be fair, we got like an hour and 20 minutes before I swore, and then immediately realized that I swore in the last episode.
I could have bleeped it. I was very tempted to bleep it. But yeah,
all right, John can blur it out.
I can. I've got new video editing software. I can do that. I can mosaic it.
There you go then. Great.
I have the mental image that John, any time that I make that gesture again, it's just going to be like a different food substance or a different random item.
Just covering it, yeah.
Yeah, why not?
It might even be Paimon.
That's definitely happening now.
That would be full circle.
Please go onto the YouTube site to witness what I actually used to cover Gareth's middle finger.
Yeah.
What were you saying about the XP drop when you like, you've done all the story modes, and you've done all this? Is that when the game goes, do you know what the real secret of leveling up is? Open your wallet.
No, so the way that it gets to that is that the party of 4 characters that you have, I think there's something like 50 or 60. I'm not sure of the exact number, but it's more like I don't know if you guys ever played it, a Fire Emblem Heroes type situation.
Vaguely aware of it. I've not played it. I've watched it being played.
Is Fire Emblem Heroes the app?
Yes, the phone version of the Fire Emblem
I had
game.
it for ages.
Yeah. So you have all of these party members, and the only way you do get some for free at the beginning of the game, but the way that you get the good ones, shock horror, is by going to the store. And you get a random drop, and that's where the gacha elements come in. And you get like different star, 1 to 5 stars, Paimon's mum.
I'll tell you.
That. It's not actually Paimon's mum. I wish it were, because then I could kill her.
Paimon.
Yes.
A friend of mine is currently playing this, and desperately playing it.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, it's not just 1 to 5; it's 1 to 6, because he's got 3 6-starred, all orange and legendary characters.
Wonderful.
He was very happy about them, and he was streaming through Discord. Basically, we're not sponsored by Discord, but streaming through Discord, he showed me. He went, "Oh, look at this!" I went, "Okay, what now?" Oh, well, now I complete the missions. Oh, John, you have now disappeared, just to let you know.
What just happened?
But
okay.
I'm not entirely sure. That is not John's face there. Now that is, but
I mean, technically, John's logo is John's face.
Yeah, technically, that's what I meant. It's very small, though. Yeah.
Sorry, a little bit.
But this is where I was going to piggyback in my topic of. So over the last couple of years, I've been playing a lot of digital TCGs just because I can play it in and around my time. And when I was using Steam, I discovered a free TCG game called Eternal, and it's made by a studio called Direwolf Games, who actually do digital and physical stuff. So they actually do Clank.
It's sad, so sad. It's a sad, sad situation, and it's getting more and more absurd. So we just had a quick mic change from Gareth. He was sounding very much like Optimus Prime, and as cool as that is, we figured we'd change mics. Right, so Gareth, you were talking about a TCG game that is kind of like what I was talking about with Genshin Impact.
Yeah, so I came across, there seems to be this arms race for digital card games. So a couple of years ago, and I tried to get John into this, and it's called Eternal, and it's made by a studio called Direwolf Games. and they make physical as well as digital product. So I think they do things like Clank, the board game and stuff like that.
Okay.
But one of the people in charge of that is a guy called Louis Scott Vargas, LSV for Magic the Gathering players, who's like has he been world champion? But he's like in the Magic the Gathering Hall of Fame. And when they released Eternal, you could play for free.
Okay.
You could actually play if you were good enough and you played the games and the format well enough. You could grind free resources, and you could be pretty much self-sustaining. And you could. One of my friends, it got to, without putting any money in, he got just outside like the legend bracket. And then you reach the point where everyone else you're playing against has paid for having the best cards, which John can relate to from when we played Gwent.
Yes, very much so.
And one of the issues with Gwent was you could play Gwent for free. However, when I got to a certain point, like I just got lucky with my gacha drops, and I ended up with a pretty decent. I'm trying to remember what the factions are called.
Oh, I can't remember.
It was basically the one that does the siege towers and stuff.
Yeah. So the problem I had with Gwent was the way that I chose to play the game ended up not being. I got the deck that I wanted, and then immediately a patch dropped, and it was suddenly not a way that you could play the game, which meant that if I wanted to change, because I think at that particular point there were like 3 decks that were effective, and I didn't have one of them. And I wasn't willing to put in the hours of time it would have taken for me to get the currency that I would have needed to make those decks. At which point I'm like, okay, that's it, I'm out.
Yeah.
But then you've currently got like there's been a lot of people who, due to the pandemic, have done streams for things like Duel Links, the Yu-Gi-Oh version, and a lot of people are trying to go like, is it possible to become king of games for free? Because
how much free time have you got?
Well, it's possible to become king of games for free, and it doesn't actually take a lot of effort. But you have to know, you probably have to have played the game before, and then you create a new account to take advantage of, you've got knowledge of what the free items are and such.
Yeah.
But then it becomes, and this is one of John's pet peeves, when I try to encourage John to try playing these kind of card games.
I'm notoriously bad at taking on Gareth's new games, by the way. I am quite awful.
Skeptical, could one say? You are
cynical, perhaps, maybe.
Cynical, yes.
Yeah.
Downright pessimistic. Sorry,
like John went on about Monster Train, and it's like, oh well, once I've bought Monster Train, I own everything, and I'm like, I don't feel it's the kind of thing that is going to grab me for multiple hours.
It's funny you should mention Monster Train. I actually fell off that.
You fell off the train. Sorry. Anyway.
Nice. But I completed the game a couple of times, got Ascension a couple of times, and then went straight back to playing Slay the Spire, which I still play to this day. Slay the Spire is an amazing game, which I've actually encouraged Gareth to play multiple times. He has yet to take me up on it. But I think that's just a difference in opinion between the two of us. I like those kinds of games. I think Gareth is more about his deck building. But you never know.
I mean, building on that, so Monster Train, when was the last time you actually played?
I can check Steam to check when I last activated it. Hang on.
20 minutes ago.
20 minutes ago. Yeah. June. I last played in June.
Okay. So update it, and play it again. They have released, the starting champion cards and all those champion options.
Yeah.
They released alternate versions of those.
Oh, okay.
For one. Plus, also, if you don't already have all the factions, they've introduced some individual faction cards, like the Umbra's got a lot more and stuff like that, and how it works out. And I think there's one additional faction that, and I can't think what it does, but it did introduce some new stuff. However, sitting on this fence and getting splinters, I also know exactly how Gareth feels, because with I like playing the card games where it's just continuous and I don't have to worry about it. But then I also like the element of deck building and trying to get the cards and then playing a competitive, versus others. So one thing I want to say that sits on the fence, I suppose you might say, Legends of RUNETERRA.
Okay.
So Legends of RUNETERRA is the League of Legends style kind of Hearthstone is the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah,
but it isn't. Insofar as it's much more a Magic and a Hearthstone mixed together with a few strange elements in it. But a couple of the reasons why that's good is one, it's still relatively new. It's only just left beta, and they've only had one major set release, which has only just happened.
Okay.
Secondly, you can get cards through the standard way. You can pay for them. You can pay decks outright, to be frank. So it is slightly pay to win. But they have a model in there where you can select to get quests and to follow a specific quest line for several of the themes. So Piltover and Zorn
I don't play Hearthstone, but doesn't Hearthstone do something very similar to that?
It does, but it
system.
Yeah, and this does as well, and this is where it's going to come from. So first off, Hearthstone had set cards which you could get or packs, whereas this will allow you to customize kind of where you're getting your selection of cards from. So from a specific faction, so to speak, or whether you want Dust, and Dust can be used to craft cards, but you can also get wild cards.
Okay.
So you can get them both in packs. If you have a pack with 4 cards in, one of those could be upgraded to a wild card of the relevant rarity. And the champions, which are typically the legendary things or, the main monsters, they have their own wild cards. And yeah, they cost a bit more dust, but the quests are easy enough that you can get the dust pretty quickly. I created an entire deck within 2 weeks just from dust. I spent no money on it.
Yeah.
Now, they also released the new stuff, so I'm kind of like, I've got to grind again. But I can do it, and I probably would get the majority of those cards.
I've tried Hearthstone, and I didn't like it. And then I tried, because I played League of Legends for a long time. I got to Plat, by the way. I'm not amazing at the game, but I got to Plat. And I figured it's League of Legends based. I recognized these characters, and then got into it, and I went, oh no, it's another Hearthstone, and immediately got turned off. Which, that might be to my detriment, but, that's how it looked to me, and it turned me off, unfortunately, so...
I mean, like Hearthstone, you actually have interaction on your opponent's turn as well, don't you, in RUNETERRA?
Yeah. There's a lot of that. So you can affect your opponent's board, and they can affect yours, like on different turns. But also, in a very Magic sense, and this is why it's also potentially important, is you block, but you choose your blockers. And why it's important is because then if you've got an effect that happens when something goes to the grave, as it is. When it's destroyed, then that can affect it. Or if you say when this person's attacked, increase its attack, its damage. So there's it's a mix. And that's why I use Magic the Gathering as the kind of it's the middle ground between Hearthstone's back end system and Magic's mechanic system. I think would be the easiest way to say that.
There is one thing I'd like to ask though. I didn't really get into RUNETERRA enough. Does it have chat? Can you chat to your opponent?
No, absolutely not.
But
it has emotes.
Coming back to what we were talking about last week, about basically the importance of chat in League of Legends.
Smack
talk.
But
you're facing your opponent now. I mean, it's even better because they keep releasing new emotes, and the emotes either cost money or they cost whatever you're saving up. So it's again, you can buy decks, but you can buy the cosmetics. These emotes can be great. You could have like Teemo like blowing a raspberry or something like that, or you've got.
I thought you were going to say something else then.
Whoa! Come on, this is Tencent friendly.
You could customize your emotes, so like you could customize your avatar and you could customize your emote, and you had like
your deck sleeves, the game board. You can get a little pet, just like Magic Arena. Which has just released that shortly. Which is, I'm surprised you didn't mention Magic Arena when you were talking about digital TCGs that have had a slight resurgence.
with Magic Arena, there's Magic Arena opposed to some of these. Like, I'm not saying it doesn't have a gacha element, but when you start an account with Magic Arena, it gives Magic Arena and Duel Links and Tekken, which was Capcom's weird. I don't know if anyone's seen Tekken.
I have. It looked weird.
It's RUNETERRA, actually, to me at times reminds me of Tekken because there's real time interaction. And people were discovering like you could actually do frame links in Tekken, like Street Fighter styled frame links in this strategy card game.
Yeah.
And you end up with you start your account and they give you X amount of free resources. And the problem people have if they don't know the card games is they waste the resources on like stuff that they think cool. So like the Duel Links one is everyone gets the cards from the cartoon, even though they're probably terrible and they've got very little playability. But Duel Links is weird in the fact that it's like a squished down version of Yu-Gi-Oh! So instead of it being a 5, you can have 5 monsters, 5 spell and traps. You only have 3 monsters and 3 spell and traps.
Yeah.
So it's like a speed format. And a lot of YouTubers and Yugi-tubers, as they like to call themselves in their community, have been doing Duel Links, and they've been going like, if you pre-plan your deck and you start a new account, how long can it take you to get to King of Games? And a lot of people did it within like 3 weeks. They were like, I'm going to play for an hour a day. You know, it was like, I'm going to budget by not spending money. I'm going to budget by not playing all day and grinding. And a lot of this stuff came from a YouTuber called Nim. Him and another Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTuber called Simo, or Alex Simo. They basically were like, oh, I want to find something interesting that's relatable for new players. And they basically got talking and they're both into old school RuneScape.
Oh, wow.
And they went, well, how about, you know, what's the Iron Man run for Yu-Gi-Oh? Because like a competitive deck in physical Yu-Gi-Oh, this is using the American terms, it can be between $400 and $600 for a competitive deck. Some decks can actually go up to $1,000.
See, that's one of the things that really upsets me about these types of games is the fact that you're putting this amount of money into essentially like either online things that can go away or pieces of cardboard. And that I just can't.
Well, you know,
it just turns me off.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
You came at you like that.
Yeah. How much did I end up spending? I've probably spent like £1,100 on League of Legends skins.
So about those £400, £600 Yu-Gi-Oh decks.
Or 3.
Yeah.
So,
okay. All right.
But basically, the equation that he used was like, commonly people say to new Yu-Gi-Oh players, buy 3 structure decks and put them together, and you'll have a competent strategy. Like you'll have a LinkedIn strategy, and certain structure decks, I think they're released twice a year. Certain structure decks are stronger than others, but if you get like a current one, it's usually like still meta relevant. And he went, okay, so I'm going to buy 3 structure decks, which is $30, and I'm going to spend $30 a week and see if I can get to nationals. And I think he does 14 episodes.
Yeah.
And he actually goes to Nats with a deck that's basically made in a gacha format.
That's pretty cool. Like that's, you know, if you're interested in that game, that's definitely something you would want to watch, isn't it?
Yeah. Opposed to like how most competitive players go, which is like you go to a secondary seller, you spend $150 on a relevant card, or you know if you need.
We are referring to physical card games at this point.
Yeah.
And Duel Links does a similar thing. Like the prize item in Duel Links is it's called a dream ticket, and you can with it. There's ultra rare, which is the top rarity, super rare, then you got rare and normal. And Konami give them out like so infrequently. So they give them, I think you get something like 4 ultra rare, 4 super rare ones when you start a new account. And it's sometimes like Hearthstone had it with the Call of Cthulhu expansion.
I thought you were going to say Cthulhu then.
It is totally Cthulhu.
Okay.
They just couldn't get the rights from H.P. Lovecraft, probably.
Yeah.
Wait, isn't that in public domain?
Sorry?
Isn't Call of Cthulhu in public domain? It's Lovecraft. It's like 300 years old or something stupid like that, isn't it?
He's from like the 1920s.
Oh, is it that recent? Oh, sorry.
Yeah. But
it still might be public domain though, because it's like 50 years usually. So, but also you have to consider that Cthulhu is.
Sorry, I just imagined Cthulhu with a pair of Mickey Mouse ears on for some reason. I don't. When you talk about public domain and
he's suddenly become public friendly. He's visiting the patrons at Disneyland this year.
Well, no, it's just that obviously Mickey Mouse should have been public domain like 25 years ago, but Congress in America keep like pushing that back. Yeah, and exactly. Suddenly some sort of like squid monster with some Mickey Mouse ears, and suddenly, hey, he's no longer public domain either.
Yeah, I like this. We'll come up with our we'll call him Cthulhu.
Maybe.
This is like that's like they're all World of Warcraft bots, and they're all based off like the 4 elder entities. But yeah, like if you start a Duel Links account, if you start when they do have a birthday, so if you come in, the next one will be the 4th birthday, and they give you a load of promotion stuff, and it's worth coming in. So like Call of Cthulhu is like if you started in that expansion, they just threw product at you.
Yeah.
Like you could get something like 18 free packs to start a deck, and the Cthulhu deck to start off with. So you got Cthulhu, who was so as John will know from Hearthstone, you get 1 mana crystal per turn. He's a 10 mana 10/10 who deals 1 damage to his power and toughness. And then there's all the Cthulhu Disciple cards, which reduce his cost, or make him more powerful when he's summoned, or add him to your hand, or all this other crazy stuff. So the amount of times you'd summon like a 32 Cthulhu, wipe the board, and probably kill them with the damage was so.
And Cthulhu was built around the idea that, and this was always said on the cards, give your Cthulhu +1/+1 wherever he is. He could be dead, and he would still be getting this +1/+1. You'd revive him, he'd be like, oh, I'm now like a 32. Sorry, I had to BRB. I'm back now.
Yeah, it's weird you mentioned that actually, because Dan was mentioning the Umbra in Monster Train, and that was pretty much what the Umbra deck was all about, wasn't it? You had one massive guy who was enormous, and everyone else was just feeding him and making him stronger.
Yep.
You've got in Magic the Gathering, you've got the Umbras, which are auras. So auras are spells that you attach to a creature card, and loads of them are like, instead of if this monster would die, destroy this Umbra. And you like there's in Modern, there's like a couple of Umbra decks, and there's one in each of the 5 colors. There's actually multiple Umbras. I think green is the. I've not played that format for a long time, but green used to be big.
Dan, you might know this. Are there any? So I played Monster Train for quite a while. I've got like nearly 100 hours on it. I always found that the most interesting group you could play as was the Candle group.
You know what?
Are there any,
as soon as you said that, then I was like, you know what? He's going to go for Burnout here. I knew you were. Yeah.
Are there any other games that have used that kind of trope? Because it seems. Sorry.
So what's the burnout mechanic?
Right, the burnout mechanic is that the guys are made out of wax, and they have like 3 different turns, and if it can be more than that, obviously, but the characters would burn out. They would, I can't remember it. It's been a while. Some characters would burn out because they're lit on fire, and those guys were more powerful than the regular characters. That everyone was made of wax in this group, but if you had like cards that would increase their power, but would make them so that they would melt.
So the idea is it apply like Burnout 1, but then give them +5, +2, or whatever.
Yeah.
Now that applies to a certain.
I can think of multiple card games where similar mechanics happen. Magic the Gathering, this sounds like there's certain Rakdos sacrifice decks So they're red and black. And what you can basically do is you can have certain creatures that will attack, but then you have to sacrifice something, or it might have to sacrifice itself when it attacks. Or you might use a spell that does something similar. Another mechanic that strikes me from Magic the Gathering, I think it was called Vanishing. So you'd summon a creature, and it'd be, for example, a 3/3. But each turn, it lost. Basically, its power and toughness were a counter, so it had 3 +1/+1 counters, and each turn it would lose a counter.
All right, let me be more specific. I would imagine that there are plenty of decks that probably in different games that do this type of mechanic. I liked the thematic reason that it gave for this particular mechanic. Because the idea of your guys getting weaker because they're melting away just set something off in my brain that went, yes, that is definitely what would happen. You could also have characters being made into other characters, because you could just imagine these different bits of wax just being smacked together and made into a different thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's so one of the champions, and basically, Gareth, if you haven't played Monster Train, I haven't seen it played. You get a choice of 2 champions right at the start, and that will kind of define how your deck goes. One of those champions involves that each round, at the start of the round, it checks whether anyone died in the last round, and will bring it back +10/+10.
Yeah.
So for a burnout deck, the die, if you plan it right, and you've got a burnout 1, burnout 2, burnout 3, the guy on top's going to die. He's going to become a +10/+10 next round. So the idea is that this champion could revive him. I mean, it was quite interesting. There is the idea of it isn't self-sacrifice in the same way. They just their time would be up.
Yeah.
But then the revitalizing bit was always the fun bit for me.
Yeah, it was just the thematic reason that they were giving for this particular mechanic was cool, and it set off my monkey brain into thinking, yes, I could imagine that happening. Thank you for coming up with that.
This is actually potentially legitimate in a slightly fancy
demons
world.
Going on a train and being attacked by angels.
I'm trying to stop hell from freezing over, kind of thing. Yeah. It appeals to the monkey brain. But yeah, no, I mean, I know we've talked. We've not just talked about digital TCGs. Say that again, sorry.
Sorry, I said I know I'm getting John for Christmas a Yankee Candle collection.
No, please, no, God.
Okay, well you'll have to write on it that it's for his missus, and then just say for you and John.
So
that'll be it.
So I feel like this is coming to the end of this particular topic, but there is one thing I would like to steer back towards Genshin Impact, in that I enjoyed the game for the most part. The thing that it definitely did for me is that it made me want to play Final Fantasy XIV.
Oh yeah.
Because I've played nearly all of the Final Fantasy games. I've completed most of them. I've never played 11 because when that came out, it wasn't that easy to get hold of unless you had a PS2 with the hard drive, which I didn't have at the time. And I never played 14 because I'm not that guy. I don't play open world MMO type games. But I played this and it seemed very easy, and it was easy to jump in, do a couple of things, and then come out of it again and not worry too much about where I was at or saving it or whatever, which being a parent is a very attractive thing, because obviously I could say to my family, okay, I'm locked in the room, I'm in the vault, don't come bother me, at which point 20 minutes later screams will occur over here and I have to obviously break up World War III that's occurring out there. So the kind of thing that I can just leave it and not have to worry too much about what I'm doing is a very attractive thing to have. And I don't know, have either of you ever played Final Fantasy XIV?
I've watched playthroughs. It looks, you know what, for a Final Fantasy game, I'm not a massive Final Fantasy fan. I'll start out and say it.
That's fine.
Apologise in advance.
You're allowed your opinion. You're wrong, but that's fine.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. But I've seen it played. It looks like a Final Fantasy game, and there is, if you do play it, because you do sound to be, you sound to be going that way with it.
Yeah.
There is, very interestingly enough, considering what we just discussed about Genshin Impact, awkward difficulty scaling.
Really? Oh, okay. Huh.
So some of the side quests are right next to each other. So you'd logically think, I'll do his, I'll come back. So his is a level 7. Oh, this is level 21. Ah, no, I'll leave that one be. Thank you. Right next to each other.
Okay.
Like it was honestly that's the one thing that I kind of took away from it, and the fact that it was Final Fantasy nostalgic. It had a lot of the similar characters you're likely to have seen.
Yeah.
And and the very move style was symbolic. But
see, the thing I was interested in was the fact that people say that for story elements, it's very good. And for most MMOs, I've been turned off by the fact that most MMOs have terrible storylines, or they just don't interest me. So
most of the storyline in an MMO is like just do the quests, keep grinding.
Yeah, pretty much. Although I did show you guys a boy that seemed to be without his parents in Genshin Impact.
Yes.
Poor Timmy, who was upset that I scared the birds away, and he didn't want me to make the birds go away, just like his daddy. Which that was literally like 10 minutes into the game, by the way. I'm like, what have I got myself into here? It was kind of worrying, but
you're not the first person to send me that, actually.
Oh, okay.
It was funny. It was a different angle though. So I was like, oh, is this another one? No, it's the exact same, but yeah, it was a bit interesting.
I've seen some elements of that kind of in-game storytelling that's trying to be a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Like I saw a different kid, a different part of that particular castle that I'm outside of, who's called Arthur.
Is your princess in that one or a different one?
No. He was called Arthur, and he was staring at a sword, wondering if he could pull it out. The sword. He was trying to pull out the sword.
We've all been there.
Yes. So moving on.
Not in a public setting. Moving on. So what was it next? It was myself, wasn't it?
Yes.
You know what? We have moved quite nicely on from RPGs, from video game RPGs, JRPGs in some cases, or moving over to tabletop role-playing games primarily, and what I'm talking about is D&D. So D&D is as old as time. Oh, it's not really. It's from the late 70s, early 80s, but from the Gary Gygax Foundation onwards. However, for the purposes of today, I found and I'm so glad Garrett's on. I found a map making website that has lots of free options and stuff like that. Enough free options, but not quite enough for me. So I paid for the extra $25 for the year, and I am hooked. Pardon?
Is that Incarnate?
It is Incarnate. I'm hooked. I'm telling you. I'm a big fan of Critical Role. For anyone who is listening or watching, I know that other people know smatterings about Critical Role. I don't know whether you've watched any large amount of it, Gareth, John.
Gareth?
I think, as I said in the last episode, I think I've tried to watch the first episode of Critical Role multiple times, and it just, I think, is it the second season? And it's got Matt Mercer talking to himself as a series of dwarf guards for like 10 minutes. And I was like, is anything going to happen?
Is it a little self-indulgent, is what you're telling me?
Like, don't get me wrong. He's clearly a great DM. He's very popular. Being a voice actor, he's very fluid in his transition. But
yeah, I saw. Like, I took a quick look because I realized we were going to talk about this. I haven't watched any Critical Role, but I did look at the people who are on it, and
they're all anime voice actors.
All anime voice actors. I recognized all of them. It's
and a Prime TV and a primetime television actress in Ashley Johnson, who is in Blind Spot, but also game actresses, not just anime, game actors and actresses.
Yeah.
Marvel's Avengers, the recent game that's come out. Oh, only 4 out of those 10 Avengers are around that table. Has everyone heard of Last of Us?
Yeah, that was the thing I was going to bring up. So I always assumed that the lady who played the capture and the voice of Ellie was actually Ellen Page, because it looked just like her. Just to realize that it's not. It's one of the characters in Critical Role.
Yes, it is indeed. that was one of the things. I do think there is there was an existing lawsuit about that, but that's about the Ellen Page aspect of it. So let's gloss over that. But no, I mean, other things. I mean, like they're all in video games of some kind. Sam Riegel, I did already mention. He had been on to. He was one of the producers, I think, or one of the directors for Disney shows. So he did a couple of DuckTales, the reimagined series. I think he did something to do with.
I'm watching those with my daughter right now. By the way, they are very good.
The reimagined ones, yeah.
Yeah, they're very good. I like them a lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's a similar but just newish art style. It's the same characters you love. I think he also did something to do with Where in the World is Carmen San Diego or whatever that is. I'm not entirely sure with American culture. I've not watched it ever, but that's just Sam Riegel.
Which one of them was the voice of Teddy from Persona 4? Do you know that?
I would also like to point out that we've missed Sam Riegel's key voice acting point, which is being Rex Raptor from the original Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, we have to bring you back round. Yes, yeah. So Persona 4, who is it?
It's Sam Riegel.
It's Sam Riegel. Sam Riegel. He also plays Ace Wright. What's his name? What's the Ace Attorney called?
Oh, Objection!
Phoenix Wright.
Phoenix Wright.
Yeah. That Phoenix Wright, the Ace Attorney. Objection. That's Sam Riegel.
Wow. Okay.
This is exactly. Honestly, and for those of you that aren't aware that you're watching, and I don't know what research you've done in preparation for this. We'll certainly see now. But Critical Role's first season is going to have an animated series.
Really? Wow. Okay.
Co-opted by Amazon.
Huh.
After an £11 million Kickstarter, Amazon co-opted it and said,
wow.
You know what? You're doing 10 episodes. Great. Make it 24. Okay, then.
Yeah.
Show me the money. But they're all voice actors, so it's really quite ironic. I find it ironic, at least, that they're now going to be voice actors, voice acting their own characters on a D&D screen. From that aspect, it makes me laugh. But then, where else is it going to go? Is there going to be a season 2? There's a lot of talk about that now. Sure, there is a lot of people who watch it, and this might also help to get D&D into the creativeness, the creator sphere of anyone who might no longer think that D&D is just a nerdy thing. So it'll be good from that perspective. But just think of it this way: Critical Role has developed so much, and Dungeons and Dragons and Wizards of the Coast have turned around and said, you know what? It is the last 3 years of just far and above what we expected. We weren't really going to be having a set release schedule. We're maybe just going to taper off until 6th edition or whatever was next. Oh, but actually, no. Now we're going to do 4 books a year guaranteed, plus a few extra supplementals. We're going to have an online system, D&D Beyond, which you can use really, really well. I'm actually in a campaign where content sharing's on. I can see every single book that's been released. It's incredible, and they've just gone from step to step with that. But now Amazon's getting involved, and Amazon said, "Yeah, it's popular enough. Let's throw a few million at it."
Well, it definitely is. Like the number of celebrities, at least that I've heard that have started their own games. Like, I'm pretty sure Judi Dench did a campaign.
Really? Oh my god! I want to be on Judi Dench's campaign.
Yeah,
definitely.
Like, she's a cool person. Like, I would definitely want to be involved with anything she had to do with D&D. But Terry Crews has done a D&D campaign.
He did it with Matt Mercer, actually.
Thing with Terry Crews, because that's with Matt Mercer, isn't it? Because he plays the Orc Blacksmith. And
you know what? World of Warcraft sponsored.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Terry Crews in that, the level of hype is...
Yeah, he loves it. He's a proper, like...
Of course he is. He's a ham actor. Of course he loves that kind of thing.
He's not even ham actor. I think he rolls a crit and he loses his absolute mind because he's just like... he's just letting it happen.
Yeah,
I think that's what people really like about Terry Crews is he's super enthusiastic.
Yeah.
He doesn't actually seem to bother about what people think about him, and he's of that mentality, it seems, where it's like, if you like something, just do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about the judgment. If you like it, and as long as no one's getting hurt, just enjoy yourself. Because he tried really hard they're wanting to do a Little Mermaid live action movie, aren't they?
Yeah.
And he wants to be Ariel's father.
I could see that.
you've got to make me Ariel's dad, and loads of people were like, but if the whole whitewash Hollywood argument
who
came
cares
out.
about that? That's
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, let Terry. Is it
Yeah.
Triton?
yes.
Ariel's dad.
As a quick aside, by the way,
let Terry Crews be that guy. It will be amazing.
Triton is Neptune's brother from Hercules. So, quick aside. Sorry. I like that kind of thing. DuckTales, the new DuckTales series, by the way, is full of that kind of stuff. Like callbacks and all kinds of things. I just watched the Christmas episode where Scrooge jumps on a Wendigo's head just like he did in the old Nintendo Entertainment DuckTales game. It didn't make the same noise, but it definitely was the same animation, sort of like definitely a nod to that. And that series is full of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, Gareth.
No, it's fine. I'm just going to make a quick aside myself with DuckTales being mentioned. In primary school, one of my friends had a Game Boy and I had a Master System, and we did a swap, and the game that I spent the most time on was Capcom's DuckTales.
Yeah.
And my friend James was like, oh yeah, it's pretty easy. And I was like, okay, not realizing that he'd played it for weeks and weeks and weeks before. And it's basically Mega Man difficulty.
Yeah.
So it's one of those games where you've got to work out like the microtransactions and a jump into a pogo and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, I'm very lucky insofar as I've never had to play a game of that difficulty. It wasn't really my thing, but just to kind of bring it a little bit more full circle, we're talking about celebrities who take part in the D&D. So Critical Role has they were voice actors, they now play D&D, they're now a little bit more famous, and they're getting more stuff. Oh, that is going to blow out everyone's ears. Apologies.
No, it's fine. It wasn't that bad. You got
Whereas, do you know Joe Manganiello?
Yeah.
The name sounds familiar.
So, he played in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. He played the Flash. You'll definitely recognize him when you actually search for him. But he has what can only be described as a star-studded cast of D&D players. So, in his regular game, he has Paul White, also known as The Big Show from WWE.
Oh, wow. Okay.
He has D.B. Benioff from Game of Thrones fame. One of the directors there.
Yeah.
Vince Vaughn. Rage Against the Machine's Tom Morello.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the picture, yeah.
Yeah, honestly, there's a massive group of them. And, and he was doing it with, who else? Previously, James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy director.
Yeah.
I was just quickly looking. Who else is in it? I'm trying to think what it's actually
Taron
called.
Killam? Saturday Night Live?
Yeah, Tara Killam from Saturday Night Live fame, yeah. And I'm just trying to think what the name of his D&D campaign is. But it's somewhat funny because, ironically, all these guys who are around the table...
The War of the
Paul
Dragons.
White, pardon?
The War of the Dragons, according to this article I'm reading.
Oh, so that's what the campaign is, but they call the D&D group something. And I'm just trying to find out what it's called. Because basically, it's like D&D jocks... What is it?
Celebra D&D.
Pardon?
Celebra D&D.
Yeah, that was the mini-series it was created. So... After the first series of...
I'm just throwing stuff at you. None of it's right. It's all good.
Okay, I found the answer now, so I'll just wrap back around, yeah. But the first season of Critical Role, the group called themselves Vox Machina. And so Joe Manganiello, he's a beefy guy. I mean, I would not want to take him in a fight. He's got the Big Show on there. He's got another like a bodybuilder or someone like that on there. They call it Jocks Machina. Because they're all these big beefy guys, and they sit around weekly or on Zoom now, play D&D. Can you imagine looking at the Big Show 20 years ago and thinking, "You play D&D, mate"? Not a chance. But then also celebrities again. Vin Diesel. Vin Diesel did a one-on-one campaign with Matt Mercer, I think, and I mean they're actors, so a bit of that.
I'm sorry, but Vin Diesel is a pop sensation. He is not an actor.
Let's bring in the relevance. The relevancy to this discussion. Yes, he is.
Someone has Matthew Lillard in their D&D group as well.
Deborah Ann Wall, who plays... I don't know whether you watched the Daredevil Marvel series.
I tried to watch...
The Netflix series.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Netflix series, yeah.
I got most of the way through the first season, and I think I fell off it and never came back to it, unfortunately. I've heard good things, though.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it.
My brief review. Daredevil season 1, really good. Season 2, a bit meh. Season 3, absolutely amazing, and so upsetting that the way it ends, and then Netflix went, Marvel have cancelled us.
Yeah,
and it's like,
yeah, you know what?
Why would you do this?
For a time, as far as I was concerned, I mean, I'm sorry, this is not D&D. This is not what I wanted to talk about, but this is exactly the purpose of this podcast. For a time, right, Netflix could do no wrong with those Marvels, right? I remember watching Daredevil season 1 thinking, me, this is incredible. Jessica Jones, which from a completely different aspect is still just as incredible. And I was like, whoa, Luke Cage wasn't necessarily my thing, but the amount of Harlem references, the music alone should have won that awards. It was so good, and the idea behind it. Now, I'll not talk about the awkward one of the family. It wasn't the best, in my opinion. But then you bring them all together for the Defenders, and I was like, wow, this is what I wanted.
Defenders was bad, though.
I loved it.
It was like an anticlimax.
Yeah,
But the thing that's really weird is Iron Fist season 2 was absolutely amazing. But for some reason, all these, like the last series, I've not watched Jessica Jones season 3 yet. For some reason, my brain's just like,
I don't think it had a season 3,
maybe
unfortunately.
I just overdid it. But Defenders was bad.
So how much much of the cancellation of that season 3 is down to actually just Marvel wanting the license back?
100%. Punisher was part of it.
Yeah.
And Punisher, I don't know whether you saw it, it wasn't treated like a superhero spin-off. It was treated as a gritty, this guy is like killing people. And it worked. But then that also went.
So I haven't watched any of these series because I don't think I had Netflix back then. But I've watched a lot of the Corridor Crew. I don't know if you guys know who they are. They're YouTubers who they're CGI artists, and they've done lots of like editorial type of passing judgment on CGI scenes and what have you. And it was very popular. So they brought in actors and stuntmen to look at scenes that stuntmen do, and show them how they do it, and say this is really good, or they shouldn't have done it this way, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
They had a lot of... one of the stuntmen that they brought in was the stunt director for The Punisher. And it showed like a lot of scenes of that, and I'm thinking, wow, that looks really... exactly as you said, very gritty. Like, there's no two ways about it.
It wasn't a superhero movie. Yeah. Kids should not be watching it, because there's the storyline of The Punisher, which happens right at the start, although it doesn't in this case, it's a flashback. But like, it was like they were showing what? I was like, I mean, Netflix should just push that boat out, and they could. Most common studios nowadays are scared of doing that. Netflix just says, anything out.
I think Netflix also do go out put anything out, because one of my friends
he sent me
a
I'll
film.
have to beep that now.
Bleep, yeah.
One of my friends sent me a film, and I would have to look through my messages to find it. And it literally starts off as a film, and it just falls into like, it may as well just be like cut to the scene of two directors in the pub sat in a beer garden talking about how the film should end. It literally just like drives off the cliff.
Isn't that an episode of Phineas and Ferb? I'm sure that's an episode of Phineas and Ferb where like they run out of, well, they pretend they run out of money and just say, we ran out of money, so this is what should have happened, but instead you're getting us on a green screen. Sorry about this.
I mean, that kind of aspect of it does. I mean, it does interest people.
Yeah.
The green screen Punisher is hilarious though.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's really bad.
Let's not mention my green screen.
So we have obviously gone on quite a deep rabbit hole there.
Can we go back for a sec?
We can go back for a sec. Let's go back
to the start. I just want to go back to the start to explain why I started about Critical Role, and then it just developed. And I cannot understate this enough. This is exactly why we did this podcast, because sometimes someone mentions something, and then about 13 references down the line, we realise that it's actually an hour later,
and it just goes.
Yeah, exactly. But so basically, Explorer's Guide to Wildmount was released by the Critical Role team in conjunction with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. So it's official canon, all this. The world of Exandria, as it was, which is related to that story. And I was happy to be reading the book.
Is this a campaign that other people can play then?
Yeah,
it is indeed. So it is a campaign book. So basically, this gives people the subclass options, the history of the area, the history of the world, even, as well as a few starter campaigns.
Okay.
So these campaigns typically take you from level 1 to 3 in different parts of this world. Now, this is only a starter thing. It's not a full module. But that then led to me. I happened to just I was reading through the entire book. I've read everything now in that book, and there was a succinct 2 paragraphs about a continent that's not been explored, and I went, "That's a really quirky continent. That's a really quirky idea. You know what? I'm going to work with that." And so this was Saturday because I wasn't feeling particularly well, so I was like wrapped up. I was like, right, I'm Saturday doing that, and since Saturday, used Incarnate, which not sponsored at all. But I just paid the money for, and I was like, great. And I've now designed the continent map. I've designed like the main islands maps. I've designed 6 town maps, 3 battle maps, and I'm like, I'm gonna have to run a campaign now. I've done all this.
Gareth, are you hearing this and going, I wish I had the free time to make all these maps?
I'm so sorry, Gareth. I'm so sorry. Don't hurt me.
Is what I use the free version for, like when I do the world map stuff.
I thought it was the case. I did recognise the text.
Yeah. Like as Dan says, the design space of just mentioning like a lost continent or an unknown continent is a very simple design space. So it's like you can just throw in your world into their world. Yeah. And I think that's a good descriptor to do stuff. Also, canon to the worlds of D&D is Acquisitions Incorporated.
Yeah,
because they just before Critical Role got their book out, there's also the Acquisitions Incorporated book. So you also have their subclasses and lore and stories.
So Acquisitions Incorporated are the Penny Arcade people, right?
Yeah, it's the Penny Arcade one.
Right.
And it's got some very Jerry Hawkins rules in it.
Yeah,
so
it is worth pointing out, and I just want to put this as a caveat, nothing absolutely negative towards Acquisitions Incorporated. You cannot insert Acquisitions Incorporated into a standard D&D campaign. You have to build it a little bit more around the Acquisitions Incorporated, because there is, as Garrett's about to explain, some quirky aspects, shall we say, some quirky classes.
Yeah. So you have, unlike standard D&D where you have races, race traits, class traits, ground traits, in Acquisitions Incorporated, there is no everyone starts with the same narrative, which is you're meeting to become a franchise holder for an adventuring group that falls under the Acquisitions Incorporated banner.
Oh God. Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's not quite the same.
It's so Penny Arcade, because Jerry Hawkins is like, you've got, so say you're a wizard, you're a half elf wizard, but also you've got to have a role in the company. So you might be a documancer, so you're the one who takes all the notes and stuff, or you might be the cartographer, so you do the maps, or you might be the hordes person, so you're in charge of all the loot. And then you get, from those job classes, you get benefits. So one of the frequent things that happens in the C team is the documancer will receive missives via their documancer satchel. So the satchel is basically like a fax system for head office to send you missions or updates.
For some reason in my head, I've got like the corporation in Umbrella Academy in my head. That sort of similar sort of meshing of things going on. Sorry, Gareth.
See, for me, I can kind of see why you'd make that. Imagine that, but you're also a Subway franchise.
Oh God, not again.
You know what I mean? But so the C team basically happened when they were like, oh, for funsies, because for some reason Penny Arcade did like a load of tabletop stuff, like they played Warhammer. I'm trying to remember what what's the tabletop game?
Penny Arcade have pretty much tried their hand at everything, though, haven't they? Because they had those RPG games that came out like 12 years ago or something like that. At the precipice of what was it called?
Yeah,
Precipice of Darkness.
Yeah.
Which was also a reference to Call of Cthulhu.
I think I remember that, yeah.
Circling back around.
Which had the giant orange loving fruit blender as Cthulhu.
Don't bring Donald Trump into this.
Oh, I think we might have to cut that, otherwise that's it. Oh.
I'll bleep it. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But, he basically belittles himself about D&D in one of the Penny Arcade comics, where Mike, who is... So, Jerry is Tycho Brahe in the Penny Arcade, and Mike is Gabe. And Mike basically... it's like, oh, what you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm writing a D&D campaign. And Jerry's like, oh, do you want some help? And he's like, no, not really. And in the comic, he basically tells him a false narrative of what he's doing. And he's like, Jerry comes back, and it's like, oh yeah, I've done a full workout of this D&D world. And if I remember correctly, it's like, oh, it's D&D, but instead of races, you're vegetables, and you've got to come out of the ground and you explore the world. And basically, Jerry, the later on comic is Jerry's like voice doing the narrative as this like thing comes out of the ground, and then the last panel is, I just told you a lie, and he went, I thought I spent too much time working out the concept of soilmancy.
Soilmancy. Well, that does, I suppose, pretty much sum up. I mean, I was just very excited about D&D. I've got this idea in my head. I'm going to be running a campaign just to test it out with a few friends, just to try and get as many people as I can in. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of what I wanted to talk about. We did meander a lot, but it was good. That's part of the reason why we're having this podcast.
Yeah.
So I think, I mean, does anyone else have anything to kind of?
I mean, what are you saying about this Critical Role thing? Like, what's the design space that you've decided to go for, other than it's a lost continent? Because
it's not actually a lost continent.
Everything.
So everyone knows exactly where it is. It is in the Shattered Isles, and so some of the things that attracted me to the Shattered Isles is you can only get through it through a perpetual fog bank called Fool's Curtain, and I was like, well, of course, yes. But then it's made up. It's a series of small islands, but it's 43 small islands exactly. And I was like, I mean, that's okay. That's a bit quirky. I'm going to go with it. And then it tells you a little bit more about the who controls them, but it's very vague. And I was like, I can build on this. And so, like, the campaign that I have will start off with the adventurers in mainland, go into the Shattered Isles, and that the story will run from there. But with the Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, there's a lot more opportunities and subclasses. Things like the Echo Knight, the Chronergy magic, the Graviturgic magic. There's all sorts of things available. So that's the vague aspect of what it is. It's going to be more of a survivalist game, as opposed to
how are people going to drink though if they're survivaling though?
Say that again.
How are people going to get their beer if they're on a survival?
They're going to find out once they make land and see what's there. As far as they're concerned, when they arrive, it could be nothing there.
I like how seriously you've taken that. It's just the fact that every campaign that Dan's been involved with myself has had some element of drink involved with it.
Yes, it has, yeah. Quite by accident in most cases, I just want to point out.
Okay.
Except for the first character who was a born drunk, I guess.
A born drunk? That tells you something.
Yeah, I mean, he was a sailor. I mean, I'm not stereotyping here, but he wasn't the best sailor ever. He needed something to drink on the high seas. But yeah, so that's my campaign idea. I'm still working on it. It won't head off yet, but I've done, like I said, I went straight on an Incarnate, paid the money, and I've got so many maps, and I'm like, well, I've got to do a campaign now. I'm too far down this rabbit hole.
Okay. I mean, it depends as well as like a DM on how you want it to focus your game as well. Like if you're going to go for a survival metric, like everyone's really got to be on top of the game and everyone's got to be checking up on everything. I think that's largely why I focus more on a narrative driven campaign. Because I'm used to so many RPGs where it's like I'm carrying 32,000 gold But at no point am I ever encumbered because hammer space.
No, because encumbrance is stupid and should never be an issue.
Yeah. To be fair, coin encumbrance, I'll probably ignore. No one's going to have 32,000 gold coins. Spoilers, if anyone watching this is going to play the campaign, or listening to this is going to play the campaign, but you're not going to have 32,000 gold. However, extreme encumbrance...
Literally my only metric, getting to 32,000 gold.
that would be a feat, I'll tell you. And not a feat you can take at level 4, 12, 16, 18. 20. But yeah, so it'll be survivalist with an overarching narrative. It's not. I'm not going to ram it down the throats. They're going to find it eventually, I hope. Otherwise, I'll just have all these maps I could do nothing with. They spend it in the entirety of it in the main town.
Just put them in a vault somewhere. It'll be fine. You can always use them for later on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've saved them. It's fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my non-sponsored talk about Incarnate. So I do apologise for going on a bit of a tangent there.
That's fine. You enjoying a product? I mean, we should talk about it. There might be other people listening. Hopefully, please God, listen. That might enjoy that particular thing. So
I mean, you were asking me about pyromancers as well. Is that what you've been using for the battle maps, or have you just done?
I was, but then I found Incarnate. So it happened that you told me about that, and then I found Incarnate, and because I paid the premium for Incarnate. They've got a battle maps feature, which is fantastic. Exactly what I needed.
Yeah, with Incarnate, when I joined up, how long have we been doing D&D? I don't know. But when I joined up, they didn't have the battle map system. And when I last logged in, was weirdly during the pandemic, and I let my son just play with the map making, and he loved it. He loved making the worlds and stuff.
Yeah.
He's so much better at it than you are, Gareth. It's amazing.
Oh.
So true.
And
but he basically made these maps and he loved it.
Yeah.
And then that's when they'd had the upgrade where you could make the battle maps and the isometric maps and all the other stuff. But I believe Incarnate, a bit like Pyromancers, are looking at releasing through Steam a downloadable map maker.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll download that definitely because I mean the browser. To be fair, the browser has not had a single issue for me at the minute, so I'm not worried. But I also like having things on my system.
Can you imagine if they use that with like the workshop support as well? That would be pretty cool. Like you could just have people uploading their own stuff.
Thousands, millions of assets. Like it'd be great. It'd be my wet dream. I'm not gonna lie to you.
There's a guy
on that note, we're going to end about my wet dreams.
Yes.
There's a guy that I follow quickly for Dan on Facebook, and he's called 2 Minute Tabletop, and he does some free stuff, and he also has like patron level items. But one of the things that's quite cool, and I don't know if you want to have a play with this when we finish the podcast, he has a token editor. And it's literally it's very sort of pseudo chibi artwork of like a dragonborn and a wizard and stuff, but you can choose all the skin tones and stuff. And I think if you're going to do like a quick campaign and you're new to D&D, I think that's absolutely great.
Yeah. What's that called, Gareth?
Sorry?
What's that called?
2 Minute Tabletop. He has some great free maps. He has some great tools. And then if you really like him, you can follow him. So I've got like, I follow lots of different Instagrams for maps and D&D ideas and stuff. Some of the stuff I actually borrowed for the last campaign, including a spell that Dan was like, "Oh, I'm a half elf. It shouldn't affect me." And I was like, "It's not a charm spell. It's an enchantment."
Gareth didn't tell us he was doing homebrew spells. I just want to point out, but that's fine.
Yeah, it was a spell by a company called, is it the Feral Trading Group? And I think the spell was called Stalemate. And basically the whole point of the spell is that you basically enter a psychic battle of chess. And the whole point is that if you get checkmate, the opponent takes damage.
Okay.
Cool. All right, then. I think that's bringing us to the end of what we were going to discuss today. It's definitely long enough, so editing is going to be fun. I think that's going to be it, unless anyone else has anything to add.
Yeah, I just want to quickly, I mean, you mentioned it at the top of the show, but for those of you that are maybe watching the YouTube or you are listening elsewhere, We are on YouTube. We are also now on Spotify, on
Yep.
Anchor.fm. We are on. We are trying to get the Apple approval, as John mentioned at the top. We have submitted our first podcast for that, and every time we upload a podcast now, it will just sit in this queue for Apple to approve. I don't know how long that takes, but if you are looking for something to listen to, just on Spotify, we are available there, and we are chatting there. So if you don't have time for YouTube videos, sometimes you don't, just pull us up on Spotify, because then I get to see the metrics, and it's all cool numbers and things. It's great.
The numbers go up.
But yeah, and don't forget to share this, because that's important. Like, I know Gareth did, and I forgot. I clicked share and then wanted to put the Spotify links in and forgot. So I'm going to do that actually when we finish here.
I think
try and get it out on Facebook and Twitter.
I think I put them on the YouTube videos and the Facebook accounts and the Twitter page. We have everything that you might think that social media people should have. So we're around.
How did the Amazon work? Just out of interest.
I had to put in the RSS feed and tags, and that was pretty much it. And then it said, "You've done your thing. Come back later. We might send you an email." And that was it. So, we might get it, we might not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
but we have lots of options. So
yeah. I think that's it. So everyone who's waited this long to listen to all the way to the end, thank you very much for listening. I've been your host for today, John, although Dan's done most of the hosting by himself, which I'm very grateful for. I've been joined by Dan and by Gareth. Thank you very much for listening or watching, and I'd just like to say thanks and goodbye. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Au revoir. Good night.
Yeah. Okay.